What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of V4 Chainsaw Man. This is episode 10, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
hmm Yeah, so we pick up immediately. Well, sometime after that whole, that the entire mayhem of what happened to the public safety unit. So Denji and Power ends up visiting Aki in the hospital, and they tell him that only Kobeni and Madoka survived the assault. But of course, Madoka is the guy who ended up putting in his resignation in front of Makima at the end of the last episode. So it's only just like, Denji, Power, Aki, and Kobeni. Assuming Kobeni didn't resign herself because she was thinking about that after the whole mess in the last episode.
I would not blame her.
Yeah. So, but of course, Aki ends up mourning Himeno after all of that, and Denji, of course, it tries to wonder himself if he has any has any sympathy or any emotions towards the people he's lost over the course of the last couple episodes. I mean, would he feel sad about losing his friends? I mean, he doesn't. At this point, he doesn't really feel any sadness over losing Himeno, considering that him and Himeno ended up becoming friends a couple episodes ago before her death.
Yeah, he basically just asked himself if he would feel sad if different characters died, and it seems like he pretty much comes to the conclusion that even if somebody like Makima died, he'd probably be sad for a few days, but then go back to normal. And he wonders if it's because of him now having Pachita now kind of technically being his heart.
Yeah, I mean, he did. I don't know. He did end up losing Pachita, but I don't remember seeing him being a little. I mean, he kind of does feel sad over it, but he not. I mean, I don't know. It's weird because Denji's lived like kind of an isolated life for most of that time, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I could kind of excuse it because Denji, like you said, Denji hasn't really lived like the rest, like everybody else. I mean, he's just been. I mean, his father died, and then he had to basically live his life trying to pay off his father's debt and living in poverty. So,
yeah.
And now he's like he says, he's content with just having food, sleep, and just general just the general necessities pretty much.
Yeah. I mean we'll have to see where it goes from Denji from here. But eventually Makima takes Denji and Power to visit one of their most powerful devil hunters. I think his name is Kishibe.
Yeah.
So they first end up meeting with him, and he asks them questions of whether they'll take revenge, what side they're on, and of course he immediately takes them in. But of course, the first thing he does is just snap both of their necks.
Yeah. Well, that and he's basically and this is his way of training them. He just tries to pretty much kill them multiple times over because of course, like he mentions, Denji's immortal and Power is mostly immortal.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess this is just him trying to drill into their heads that this is kind of how devil hunting is, and you have to be ready for this kind of thing to happen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it goes on all night to the point where Denji literally suffers from brain damage after all that entire fight, and he can barely speak until Power bashes him into his senses again.
Yeah. Also, we should mention back at the hospital with Aki that there was a woman that came to visit him, and the woman is revealed to be the sister of Himeno, and she gives Aki a letter that she had written to her, that basically where she kind of talks about I guess their father, and also how she feels about Aki and wanting him to be in go private and not be involved in public safety anymore because I guess she's concerned about him potentially getting killed.
Yeah, I mean, well, speaking of Aki and his well-being, we find out that he only has 2 more years to live, thanks to him
Yeah,
using the cursed sword.
yeah, which is technically like a nail or a giant nail, but it kind of has the hilt of a katana, I think. Um,
Yeah. And we also find out that he's lost his contract with Fox Devil after what happened to him in the last couple episodes. So
yeah, it
now,
basically says that Kohn, I guess, had enough of Aki trying to, or try or just feeding it things it doesn't like or something, so it doesn't want to have anything to do with him anymore.
yeah. So, um, I think what was it? The two devil hunters that came over to visit him. They recommend that um that he ends up forming a new contract with a new devil, which they take him into like this underground dungeon or lockup where um Aki eventually meets up with this this new devil like somewhere in the shadows. It's just all we see is just like you know just a dark room with one eyeball just staring at him.
hmm Uh, but also with the next day with Power and Denji, they basically hatched. Well, the night before they'd come up with a plan to try to basically to try to ambush what was his name again?
It was Kishibe.
Kishibe. Yeah. So when Kishibe goes up to the apartment where they live, Power basically tries to throw a blood spear at him, but he narrowly avoids it by just kind of leaning backwards, and then we find that they also have like bottles or like plastic bottles of blood on the floor above him, and they try to use it as like some kind of a like a blood spike trap thing, but that doesn't work. He pretty much ends up avoiding all of their surprise attacks. Denji ends up trying to surprise him from behind with by hitting or trying to cut him with an axe. But of course he counters that and knocks out Denji. And Power had used up too much of her blood abilities, so she's anemic and can't do anything else. But of course then Kishibe commends them for that, saying that was their best effort yet, and tries to walk away. But of course, and it kind of basically makes it so that Denji lets his guard down, and he uses that to his advantage by throwing the axe back at Denji and hitting him in the head.
I think it was more of a dagger.
The dagger, yeah. But yeah, throws a dagger at his head, and that was like another one of his lessons. Like you can never, pretty much saying that you should never assume that you're safe, or you're safe from the hunter or something like that. But yeah, that so. Yeah, it's just another one of I guess Kishibe's way of teaching them, how bad it is for a devil hunter, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean overall, I think the point of this whole thing is just to get Denji and Power to work together.
Well, that too, yeah. Because we see them like cooperate more in this episode, just to try to take down Kishibe.
Yeah, I think they started showing some kind of improvements with their relationship. I mean, they kind of butted heads with each other a lot, just bickering, like like almost like a brother and sister relationship, like kind of relationships at most that kind of argue with each other from majority of the time. And of course, Denji, just coming after her for abandoning the fight against the Katana Man in one of the previous weeks.
Yeah. And of course, this week too, we get another new ending, and this one I think it's called Dogland or something.
Dogland.
I'm not gonna say anything, but I will say there are some spoilers here. The manga readers will probably understand, but I think anime onlys will kind of wonder what's up with all the dogs that are around Denji. But I think you could probably assume that it's also kind of a metaphor, because Denji is kind of like a dog in a way because of how he's Makima treats him, and how he's just will do anything she wants. So he kind of lives the life of a dog. But yeah, this is another like really trippy one too, just because of the way the animation is done. We have this like really sketchy art style like blended in with real images, and it kind of goes into like first person perspective at times, and we see the other characters, and they also look like just really sketchy, like rough sketches essentially. Um,
Hmm.
it's kind of interesting. Like I don't know. Like I like how each of these endings are very unique in a lot of different ways. It's just they like each of them. They just feel. I guess the word for it would be very like experimental, because that's how this one feels, and that's how like some of the other ones kind of felt too. Um, it's just like really, but also really weird and trippy too, and that's kind of that's which is kind of in line with how how the manga is. So it makes sense, but I thought it was, and of course the song here, it's okay. Like it's not my favorite for sure, but it's fine for what it is. I don't know how you felt about it.
I thought it was a little okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, I didn't really get much of like what was going on with all of that, and eventually, hopefully, I will get the whole gist of what that ending means. But
Yeah.
we only have like 2 more episodes left.
Like it does
before
show some things we've already seen, but it also shows some things we haven't seen yet, and we're definitely not going to see in this core. Which I like find kind of interesting that they're deciding to show some of these, but it's nothing like major. So, but yeah, I thought this episode was also really good. The animation was definitely on point again. The scenes where they're trying to, whenever they're training with Kishibe were definitely like in particular they stood out to me with how fluid the animation looked in particular. Whenever they, especially like when Power has that like hammer and she's trying to swing it at Kishibe, like it looked really smooth. Or whenever she's like running towards him and stuff. I think particularly the scene with, where they're in the graveyard, those are really good. And also when they try to ambush him at the apartments. But I thought the standout moments were when they were trying to kind of fight him in the graveyard.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good episode. I mean, definitely a good follow up episode.
Yeah.
In terms of what happened last week.
Yeah, it's definitely like we definitely needed an episode that kind of like slowed down with everything that had happened in the last couple of episodes. It was just really crazy with all the stuff, everything that happened there. So I definitely feel like we needed an episode like this where kind of just everything slowed down and we just really needed to process what just happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think if I remember correctly, it is going to start to get crazy again pretty soon. So, and I guess it makes sense considering we're getting close to the end of this. I'm guessing if they're of this particular core, I'm assuming they're probably going to do another more episodes at some point. But yeah, it's hard to say where it's going to end off as based on what I know from the manga. I'm not sure if because I know there's a particular character that shows up, and I'm not sure if he's going to show up at the end of this core or a little bit later. But I guess we'll have to see. But I don't really have too much else to say about the episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of almost sad that we're only like 2 more episodes left, and
Yeah.
there's no indication or any news right now that they'll make another core. But I'm confident they will make another core soon.
Yeah, same.
It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I think they're probably just going to take a really long break, if anything, because we know how many series that MAPPA has their hands on right now.
I mean, it's ironic that you say break because MAPPA has no break.
When I say break, I mean break from this one series in particular. But yeah, like there is really no break when it comes to like all the different projects that MAPPA is working on. It seems like they've just taken on literally like everything at this point. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if we got a new, they announced a new Berserk adaptation and MAPPA's doing it or something, because I mean, it just feels like there's, they're just the studio that just, if nobody else wants to do something, they'll do it. It just feels like that's the kind of studio they are. Not to say they're bad, but yeah, it just feels like that's what's, like for instance, what happened with One Punch Man.
Yeah, it's I mean, that's my that's my criticism about MAPPA taking too much projects because it's like it kind of like distracts from the work of them doing uh all the other stuff they're currently doing. Like, say if like with them doing all these projects, I mean, who knows that we're gonna get another core for Chainsaw Man. I mean, we know when Jujutsu Kaisen's coming, but for Chainsaw Man, we would probably wait maybe an entire year for another core to come out.
Yeah, and I think when Jujutsu Kaisen came out, I think that was just one full season they did. I don't think they took any breaks there, if I remember correctly.
No.
So yeah, it's hard to say what the plan is with Chainsaw Man going forward. I guess they'll probably have some kind of an announcement if there is something, at the end of once the final episode comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. But yeah, that all being said, guys, until next time, we will see you all later.